So today we are going to talk about great teacher Onizuka, and Fahrenheit has got a few slides prepared to talk about to walk us through Onizuka. So if I understand correctly, we are mostly going to talk about the manga. Is that right, Fahrenheit?
That's correct. Also, the stream is working fine, so everything should be okay, I guess. I'll I'll um, I'll keep the stream open just in case. But yeah, okay, right. Let's.
All right.
Okay, so slide one. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Great Teacher Onizuka presentation. I, I I spent way too much time making this, and even then, I didn't exactly give myself like enough time really. But yeah, so obviously it's officially shortened to like GTO, and also the title was literally like written in English originally, so that's kind of interesting. Anyway, I'll actually like get into the presentation now. If you move on, students,
Um,
if
ca-
possible.
yeah, a quick breakdown. Can you see which slide I'm on, or
Okay, right, okay. Yes, yeah. It's just the stream is a bit has like a lag to it, and so like these updates take a while to come in. Okay, so a quick breakdown. It was written by Toru Fujisawa. The original manga has 25 volumes and ran from the 8th of January 1997 to the 30th of February 2002. They're like all the physical volumes I believe came out, so were translated much later. Um, though I can't like, remember when exactly, but it doesn't really matter. The original manga was intended to run for 10 volumes, but due to its popularity, the run was extended. And three live action television dramas, a live action film, and an anime adaptation have also been produced. So yeah, there's a surprising amount of a GTO stuff out there. All right. If you move on to the next slide, this is probably like the most naff slide in the whole presentation. I um I made this last minute because I realised that you should I should probably summarize what Onizuka is all about, just so you get an idea. Okay. Um. So Onizuka, he's 22 years old, virgin. But Onizuka is a man of heroic will and of action. Okay. He is powerful. He is strong. He's sexy too as well. And also he likes to cosplay. Um, what what's interesting about Onizuka is that he's a man of miracles. Okay. He has the charisma to pull any suicidal students from the brink of suicide. I guess. And yeah, he also used to be part of like a bike gang. So he will use corporal punishments on students. The vice principal, no, chairwoman Sakurai, she employs Onizuka to basically deal with a troublesome class later on. But we're not going to quite get to that yet. I'm going to give a brief rundown of the main characters. So if you just continue along, student.
mm, so what's the Oh yeah, I believe this is the first in the anime anyway. This is the first shot that you get. Is that so in the manga as well? Is this the first panel in the manga? Uh,
I don't know what you're talking about, students. I can't see this at all. Uh, anyway, so we're going to talk about the characters now.
all right. Let's not talk about the characters. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have class 3-4. I'm going to do a lot of explaining now. Okay. So obviously you will have the teacher Onizuka. He's there on the top row. Um, Next to him is Rumi Kanzaki. She's basically a main character. She has a lot of story arcs. This presentation, I'm going to be talking about her stories a lot because I think her stories are generally the strongest arcs. Then you have I. She turns up much later as she isn't in the anime. Then we have Anko. She develops a crush on a Nubaru. But to begin with, she horribly bullies him. And then we have Tomoko. She's like picked on because she's dumb. And then in the manga and anime, she has like a modeling career. Then we have Miyabi. She's like the arch protagonist. She's the arch antagonist in the show and in the manga. Then we have Koji. He's like the sort of lower class member of the class. And he has a thing for Miyabi. But that's like revealed much later. And he's sort of part of a Kunio's gang. And then we have Tadaki. He doesn't really get much time. The only point in the manga he really gets like a story is where like I sort of entraps him because she gives him like her sock and he like pervs over her sock, and then things like escalates to the point where like he steals her like urine sample. And then he gets beaten up and shamed and BTFO'd, and he's very sad because he liked I. Anyway, and yeah, and Tadaki for the most part just serves as part of the as part of the threesome with Akunio. And then obviously we have Noboru. To begin with, he's bullied by Anko and her gang horribly. And then he performs heroics in a story arc that I called Tropical Student Labour, where they all go on sort of a vacation. But we'll get to that later. And he eventually wins the heart, mind, and soul of Anko. And yeah, he does have some good stories. And then we have Yoshito. He's one of the smartest guys in class. He has great Photoshop skills. Um, yeah, like basically he's just good with computers. And it's sort of implied that he like has a relationship with I afterwards, after he beats her in a karate fight. And then we have Kunio, who has like a bit of a Oedipus complex.
A bit, yeah.
For yeah, a bit of one, because he's the son of a young mother, and so he's like very protective over her. He has a lot of great bants with Onizuka, and he's like the leader of like the gang of three, with Koji and Takai and Tadaki. These are Japanese names are weird sometimes. Anyway, and then we have two characters that turn up later. This first one is Mayu. He's the grandson of the chairwoman. And he's basically a small version of Onizuka. He has like a singing career as well, and he's also like a member of like a bike gang. And then we have Sho. He's like the archangel. And he comes in like one of the last story arcs. And he's secretly working for the new headmistress that comes in the second semester. Um, Okay, so these are like all of the class that I could be bothered to add to this chart, but obviously there are way more class members than this, but these are all I think like the ones to remember. And then we have some like key people who were like attached to these characters. So we have Aruji. He's Onizuka's mate. He's like his best friend. He owns um, a um, a repair shop, I believe, and his girlfriend slash fiance is next to him, Nagasai. Um, there wasn't really any point in adding her, but I just did because I had a portrait of her. Um, then we have Mrs. Kanzaki, obviously Arumi's mother. She's very distant from Arumi, and she's only seen in the manga. But she's like a day trader. Um, she and she's massively sort of neglected raising her daughter. And then we have Julia, who's a Kunya's mother. She's like she works at a construction site. Um, I think that's just in the I think that's both in the manga and the anime. But yeah, as I explained, Kunia is very protective over her, and Onizuka tries to hit on her multiple times, and yeah, and yeah, she's just a solid character. And then we have Fumi. She's the giant 6 foot girl in one of the classes. She's not in class 3-4. She's in a different class, but she has a very short story arc with Kunio, where she pretends to be someone else and sends Kunio love letters. And then we have Tomoko's manager, which is who's called Ikira. I I think these Japanese names are weird. But he discovered Tomoko um, when she first performed at like that idol show, and he's fallen in love with her and he wants to marry her. So his way of getting with Tomoko is to be her manager, and he has some side stories with Tomoko. All right, next, and now this is going to be short, I promise. Okay, so now the faculty. First we have well, I'm gonna start at the left. We have the 2 school nurses, and this gets a bit confusing. Okay, because actually, well, firstly, I wrote I mistyped one of these women's names incorrectly. So the woman on the bottom, um, the sort of bottom left, is called a Neo, not a Naoko. It's a bit confusing, but a Neo is a different character from a Naoko, right?
I think it's
But
probably pronounced now. I think probably.
okay, now so now is also the school nurse. She much like a Naoko, she tries to sell drugs to students and teachers. But unlike Naoko, who's I'm saying I'm saying all these names wrong, but please bear with me. Um, um, yes, so now has like a darker past where her brother got involved in like a streetcar race accident, and so when now is trying to pay off the debts, so she could basically pay for her brother's expensive surgery because she blames herself for his accident. Whereas in the manga, um, um, Naoko is just a school nurse and she has some bants with Azusa, who's like the cute new teacher who looks on Azuka. Okay, moving on, we have the chairwoman herself, Miss Sakurai. she sees the greatness in Onizuka after Onizuka performs the German suplex on the vice principal. Uh, she's just like an all round great character. We're going to talk about her a lot later. And then we have the headmaster who's not to be confused with the vice. No, yes, who's not to be confused with the vice principal. So Ikeda is a different character from Hiroshi, which is kind of confusing, and, for this reason because because they're both because basically they're both pretty much the same character and they like behave in the same way. I might make mistakes later where like I falsely attribute the actions of one character with another because like they look the same, don't they? Like if you look at Hiroshi and Ikeda, like they're like basically the same character.
Fine.
Anyway,
Both of them
so
are in the manga and the anime. Or
yes, exactly. Um, which makes it even more confusing. So yeah, he's the headmaster, but after some drama with Suguru, the maths teacher, or Mr. Tashigawa, he gets transferred to the sister school, which is basically like just a silo that they turned into a school building. But anyway, in the second semester in the manga, he is replaced by headmistress Daemon, or a mistress or a headmistress Miss Daemon, and she becomes like the arch antagonist in the second semester, and she deploys various students um, to um, to try and kick Onizuka out and also all the bad elements in the school. And then we have the vice principal. His defining character trait is the fact that he loves his cresta and he will do anything for his cresta. Um, because basically he thinks he can use his cresta to sort of win the hearts of his family back, of his daughter and wife that you can see on the panel to the right of this, called the Uchimada family. Um, even his dog hates him, by the way. like his daughter, um, she just doesn't have any time for him, and it's also heavily implied that his wife is cheating on him too. And yeah, and so like for his shortcomings, he basically blames Onizuka, and he like rages or like seethes all the time about Onizuka. Um, next up we have the math teacher, Mr. Teshigawa. He creeps on Azusa all the time. Mrs. Futsuki. And he basically has a obsession with her. He's also a mentor to another student who I haven't listed. Um, I think I got a name written somewhere, but my God, I can't be asked to find it. um, and in a very tense storyline, he ends up kidnapping Futsuki, but we will talk about that. We'll talk about that later. Next, we have the English teacher, Mr. Sakurada, which I think is pronounced the same as Sakurai, but who knows? He's like a bad English teacher basically, and he's set up like very intricate cameras around a school, and has bought very expensive sort of perv gear, so he can like record the female students. He's basically just like a perverted English teacher. And then we have the Chihuahua. This we have Mr. Kocha. Oh my God! Like how do you even say this name, Mr. Kocha Atani?
Koshatani? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. He's the science teacher. He's very sexually frustrated. He's very dysgenic. Uh, he's short and he's also very angry. And he looks like a chihuahua basically. Everyone calls him the chihuahua. And he gets like blown up by Kanzaki and things, and he gets like pranked by by Onizuka. And then we have Azusa Fusky. She's like the love interest of Onizuka, and she also has a massive crush on Onizuka. Basically since Onizuka saves her from Ichimada. Um, because the vice principal tries to like group Fusky on the train, but Onizuka being the man of heroic will um, stops the assault, and so basically Azusa loves him forever after that. Next we have the gym teacher Fukuroda. I think that's how you say his name. He's also a pervert. He's like he likes watching like the female students run around all day long. And and there's a bit of a arc where he challenges Onizuka to like various sports games, and Onizuka keeps like trolling him and winning. Um, and so like Fukuroda like takes like steroids to try and beat Onizuka. But yeah, it's just a great storyline. Okay, so let's
Reply.
let's move on.
What's this? I'm come on. I don't know if YouTube will be okay with this stream now.
No, it's fine. Just move on. Just move on. We can. I don't know. We can. It's fine if this is age restricted. Who cares?
Yeah,
Okay. So next up, a big spreadsheet. So I was thinking like, what's the best way to talk about the manga? And I realized that it's actually kind of impossible to talk about the manga in terms of all the individual lessons, right? Because there's 200 plus lessons or chapters. And so what I did is I invented storylines where they sort of begin and end in the manga, to sort of talk about everything that happens quite briefly. I'm going to be quite fast. I'm going to skip over a lot of details, and I'm probably going to forget like half these storylines, so I'm not going to talk about them. Um, so yeah, on the right hand side, it's quite colourful, and there I've just like these are all the storylines I've invented. These aren't like official storylines or whatever, but I think that it's going to be very useful to talk about the whole manga. So I'm going to talk for a long time now, and I'm probably going to regret my life after I talk through all of these sheets. Okay, right. So we have the introduction, which is just lesson one, where Onizuka is still in his gang, but he wants to become a teacher after he meets a very attractive young student, and he ends up going to a love hotel with the students, but then she ends up abandoning, and she runs away with her teacher. And at that moment, Onizuka realizes that the best way to get with young girls is to become a teacher. Okay, so that's our first chapter, and then 80's classroom covers. Um, actually, I'll talk about 80's classroom later. I talk about that in more detail later. Okay. Next we have getting into Holy Forest Academy, where Onizuka sort of misses taking the educator's exam. Actually, no, I got that wrong. I'm gonna start with lesson 8. There's a pivot on the bus, so that's where we meet the vice principal. That's where we meet Futsuki. And this is where Onizuka says Futsuki on the bus. But this sort of bites him in the ass in the next chapter because the guy who's assessing him on his credentials is is the vice principal who he's just punched out in the bus, basically. And so sort of in that storyline, some students break um, into the school and threaten the vice principal. But Onizuka sort of rushes in to protect the principal. But then Onizuka gets very annoyed with the principal, with the vice principal. And so what he does is he performs the German suplex or a back of steel on the vice principal. This greatly impresses the chairwoman, and basically the chairwoman employs him then and there, and pretty much. But before then, Onizuka sort of gives up, and he goes and he sort of gets a different job, being like a maintenance guy, a like highway maintenance guy, I think. But then he gets called back, and then there's a very dramatic chase back to the school where he sort of arrives late, but Mrs. Sakurai employs him anyway. All right. Next story arc is meeting the students, where he just meets the students. The students try to prank him with like photographs and things, but Onizuka overcomes this, and he wins the respect of the smart kid with glasses of a Yoshito, and he ends up like employing Yoshito to like make photographs of for him, like composite photographs. And he doesn't punish Ishito for what he's done, and predictably our arch antagonist Miyabi sort of copes and seethes over this because somehow Onizuka has deflected the attack. Next up, it's the Kunio saga, where Onizuka, I believe, is like proving on his mum and like is like flirting with her. I think, um, but so Kunio is like in a bad mood. He goes to like a Sega center. And Onizuka like a BTFOs him in the Sega center. He's like I think in that video game he's like a bear, and he like consistently beats Kunio. But then Kunio um handcuffs him to like an arm wrestling machine, and then there's some like fun to be had there. And I forget the rest of that storyline. And then after that, it's the bullying of a Yoshika of that name that I can't say. Basically, it's the bullying of if I can find him again of a Tuberu. I think that's how you say his name.
Noboru?
But
Yeah.
yes, yes, Nibiru. And he's getting bullied by Anko horribly. He's got like bruises all over his body. Um, but yeah, I think it's in that arc that Anko's mum comes in, and after Onizuka sort of takes some revenge, and like photographs them, and like takes like nude photographs of them in like the in the karaoke place. She gets so upset and goes to her mother, and then her mother comes in, but she can't really do anything because Yoshikawa because Yoshikawa he like reveals to her mother that she has been bullying him, and so that all sort of balls over and gets resolved. And the bullying of Yoshikawa it doesn't really end until much later. And then we have the Kunio Saga Part Two. This time he Onizuka is again flirting with his mum, but this time they go to bowling, um, and then like Kunio's mum leaves for work,
Are
and
we
then
still
Kunio
sorry?
um, um
Are we still on volume 3? Or
No, no. This is volume four. This is volume four.
Oh, I forgot to change the slide. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's confusing because story arcs will last over more than one volume. Some story arcs are huge. Um, but sort of to begin with, story arcs are kind of smaller because we're just sort of we're getting introduced to all the characters. Yeah. So the Kunio saga. So Kunio sort of super glues bowling balls to Onizuka's hands, and this causes Onizuka to go crazy. But then Kunio and his friends get captured by a gang, and Onizuka plays along, and I think he actually pushes off Kunio off the bridge, but he's fine because obviously his leg is attached. I think that's what happens. But anyway, Onizuka ends up saving Kunio and his friends from the gangs. And then we have the tournament arc with the gym teacher. This is also where we meet where we meet where we meet Tomoko for the first time. I've already explained this tournament arc. It's kind of straightforward. Next we have Tomoko and her talents, quote unquote, where Onizuka finds out that Tomoko is in the class, and everyone's picking on her because she's not very intelligent. And she likes playing like in a sandbox with like Barbie and things. But Onizuka realizes that she's got great acting potential, and so this entire story arc is basically Tomoko becoming famous. And it ends in a Tomoko giving a great performance at a pageant show. I don't think it's a pageant show. I think it's like just some show, like some like recruiting program for like a magazine. Um, After that, we have the life of Vice Principal Ushimada. This is very short, and we actually come back to this arc later. And it basically just explains his home life. That's what I've explained before. His wife and daughter are like uninterested by him, and so he like uses gifts for them to like win their love and attention. Yeah, okay. And next we have Tachigawa's Observation Chronicles, where Tachikawa really into really into Fuyutsuki, like really into her. Like he has like a entire room filled with like her photographs and things, and he has like a telescope. He has like a telescope set up like pointing at her window so he can like spy on her. And I think later he like buys a apartment like right next to hers so he can like be closer to her. Yeah, he's a very interesting person, and basically in this, Onizuka sort of unintentionally foils his plans to get with Azusa or Mr. Fuyusuki, and he ends up like having like his head like pushed through his own computer because he like trips over a cable, and so he gets like hospitalized. Next we have GTO versus the NSA, and the NSA means, and I have that here in my notes. GTO versus the NSA, the National Scholastic Achievement Test. I will explain this story arc in more detail later. Hang on, I just lost my place. Okay. I don't want to explain GTO versus the NSA quite yet. But then basically, the storyline ends in Onizuka saving a high school girl, um, scoring like the highest in the country on the NSA, and also surviving a gunshot wound as well. This sort, uh, it's a very good storyline. And then after that, we get introduced to the second best character in the show. Um, um, and this storyline is called Arumi's Genie. So Arumi Kanzaki is like a is a prodigy. So she has like an IQ of 200, but she's been absent from school because she's just she's uninterested by school, and so Miyabi basically calls Arumi to come and get rid of Onizuka. So again, I'll talk about this storyline a bit in a bit more detail later, but it essentially ends in Arumi's melancholy being ended, and she has a bit of a crush on Onizuka afterwards. Sort of in the middle of that, we have the Sejima sideshow, which is basically just what it's what just what it says in the lesson. It's just a light. It's just a day in the life of Sejima the cop, who's a friend of Onizuka. Next, we have Last Natural Enemy, which again is the trilogy of Hiroshi. Hiroshi is I believe he's the English teacher. Hang on, let me just check because he is he the English teacher? Hang on. Oh my god. Um, no, that's not. I think it's I've completely forgotten what this what that's about. Okay, so we're moving on. We have Toil and Trouble. It's just like a very quick little side story with some side characters who try to poison um and entrap Onizuka to try and get rid of him, but it sort of ends in like various funny ways. Like for example, like Onizuka trips over one time and like accidentally gropes like one of the girls, and then another time Onizuka he, yeah, like another time when they're trying to feed poison cookies to Onizuka, like a boy one of the girls likes sort of comes over and tries to eat the cake, but then obviously that that girl can't have that, so she ends up having to eat all of the like all of these disgusting cookies herself. So like basically all the plans they try fail horribly. Okay, next up we have Azusa Gets Hard. So when Miss Fuyutsuki she has a hard time because all the boys in her class are like hitting on her. But at the same time, all the girls are like picking on her as well because they think like she's like taking the boys away from them. And so like this arc is just Onizuka helping as Azusa sort of get over her teaching problems. Next we have Kunio's Complex. Again, this is just a Kunio. I believe in this story, he just thinks that that his mum's he's getting married, but really she's just doing like a bit for she's just like doing a modeling job, and so he like interrupts his fake wedding, and that's basically the story. Next we have a lot to love, which is about the very tall girl. And I did have like a great panel in this story saved, but I think I lost it unfortunately. I'll find her name. Yes, Fumi. She likes Kunio, so she pretends. So she sends him like fake letters, and then in the end, she sort of finds out that Kunio doesn't really like her, and so that story kind of ends. And Kunio is like trapped in a theater with like a girl with like shark teeth, and it's kind
Yeah,
of funny. Yeah. Next we have a massive storyline called Money Problems. I'm not going to talk about it in too much detail, but basically, Miyabi has a plot to again trap Onizuka. So everyone has to save money to for a field trip. It's something like 1 million yen, I think, or less. That everyone gives everyone gives this money then to Kyoji. And the reason why they give this physical money to a Kyoji is because beforehand, Miyabi catches the English teacher perving on her and the other students. And so basically, because the English teacher is in charge of finances, she's able to engineer a situation where Koji ends up handling all the money. But in this time, Miyabi steals the money from Koji, I believe, and puts it in the jacket of Onizuka, and so Onizuka finds like these like a million yen in his jacket,
And he gives
but
them back, right?
yes, but at the same time, the English teacher then goes to Onizuka. Oh, hey, there's a student bar that's recently opened. Um, but that's a fake student bar which was invented by Miyabi because Miyabi basically pays off a bunch of female students to pose as girls in like a uniform bar. So anyway, Onizuka is blindfolded and taken to a different part of the school, and he's tricked into thinking he's in like a uniform bar. Um, I I don't think it's a uniform bar. I think it's like a uniform cafe or something. And anyway, he quote unquote spends the a million yen on this this like scam that Miyabi has set up. Meanwhile, um, Koji thinks he's lost the money, and so he feels like super guilty. Um, and so Onizuka wakes up the next day in like a garbage bin, and thinking he just he just got really drunk and like maybe had like sexual relations with his girls. Then Miyabi I believe fakes like a photograph of like Onizuka being with like a bunch of girls, and she puts this big photograph up in the middle of school to try and frame Onizuka. Meanwhile, Koji sort of says to the class how he lost everyone's money because he believes he's lost everyone's money. Um, which he didn't, and so there's some infighting. Meanwhile, like Onizuka is trying to rectify the problem because he believes he spent the money. Um, and so and so and so anyway, that little story ends in Onizuka not wanting to admit that he was tricked by Miyabi. And so he ends up bribing the entire school into a trip to I think it's Akihabara or Okinawa. Yeah, I think it's Okinawa if I remember correctly.
So,
Yes, so Okinawa.
mm,
Uh, I know I'm like missing a bunch of details, but like this is quite a complex storyline. And so when he ends up instead of having to get back a million yen, he ends up having to get back like 8.1 million yen instead. And so at that moment, he a bunch of crazy stuff happens. Like he wins a lottery, where he wins a Mercedes Benz. No, yes, but he ends up giving like the Mercedes Benz to like a guy who's like hard done by. And so basically, like he ends up not really having much luck. And it's implied that he's going to become a tuna farmer to make back the 8 million yen and like leave the school. But just at the last moments, the right guy who's supposed to give the business owner like money turns up at the school. He pays the money to the school, and then the class run out, or like Fuyutsuki, Arumi, and that lot run out to the docks to try and get Onizuka back to school because it turns out he actually did like raise the money. And then they realize as they're all crying because they think Onizuka has like left them. They realize that he accidentally took the wrong boat, basically. And so everything is sort of resolved in the end quite nicely, and the entire school ends up going to Okinawa instead of some like lame camping trip. Okay, next we have a side story called Tomoko's Big Adventure. where it's just Tomoko and her manager, um, just just like doing their thing. Like it's just about it's just about Tomoko's modeling career. I'm not gonna get into it too much. And then this next one, lesson 93, metamorphosis. This is sort of at the end of Money Problems. There's like a hanging thread because Sakurai ends up going crazy, and he ends up perving on like what like he ends up under the sewage system under like some old toilets, and he like pervs on like all the female students from like the toilets, um, from like the sewers in the toilets basically, and so like he gets caught, and so and yeah and he's running through the sewers to try and get away from the authorities, and we have like a flashback to like his life, and so this chapter is basically just like a background on Sakurai's life as he runs away from the police because he's like a sex pervert basically. And then I will talk about this arc later, a archive called Tropical Student Labor, where everyone goes to Okinawa. Um, obviously, Miyabi doesn't go because her plans have failed awfully. And it turns out like that she like accidentally turns Onizuka into like a hero. So a tropical street labor. You sort of know what happens. It's in the anime too, where they all go to Okinawa. They search for a buried treasure. Nibiru he gets into Anko's good books, and Anko ends up having like sort of developing a crush on him. But I will talk about this arc in detail later.
It's pretty short
Uh,
here. I thought it would be longer. Um,
it's interesting because it looks short, but actually like a lot happens in this arc. And sort of after this story arc, this is where the manga and the anime sort of they depart from each other. And then after this, so this is just like manga stuff exclusively now. Um, we have a story arc that lasts a while called Family Matters, where the grandson of a chairwoman Sakurai, he's called a Mayu. Um, he turns up back at school because again Miyabi goes and gets him to try and deal with Onizuka again because Miyabi is still seething and coping about Onizuka basically. And he's just like a mini Onizuka. I do talk about this arc again later in more detail, and I'll show some interesting stills from this story arc. But basically, this arc ends in Onizuka like arm wrestling 100 gang members, or like 100 high school dropouts, and like absolutely BTFOing, absolutely and BTFOing Mayu. Um, and Mayu has like anxiety problems and like heart issues because he takes like anxiety medication, and so he gets hospitalized. But in the end, ultimately, Mayu like gains a respect for Onizuka, and Onizuka he reinstates dominance and his power and greatness. Uh, and so yeah, like that's some important things do happen in that arc that I'll talk about later. Next we have I think like my favorite story arc, which is Miyabi Arumi liberating, which this that name for this story arc. It's just like a play on words. But basically, Miyabi and Arumi are like both like really sort of um they're like really depressed. In the case of Miyabi, like at this point, she doesn't have any friends, or she thinks she doesn't. She's like alienated herself from like the rest of her class. She has like a really bad sort of time with her family. Arumi sort of has like a very distant mother. She doesn't have a father. And she's just like really bored with everything. And so in this storyline, basically, Miyabi and Arumi fight. Even though Onizuka tries to like make them friends with each other, it sort of backfires, and it ends in sort of like a double suicide situation. But again, I'll talk about this storyline in a bit more detail later. It's actually really good. This storyline, and we're almost at the end now. Uh, Next, again we have the life of Vice Principal Uchimada, where Onizuka turns up at his house again, and the Vice Principal realizes in this story that basically his daughter does care about him, but he's just sort of blinded by his hatred of Onizuka. Again, because it's Uchimada, he makes zero character development, even though he has every opportunity to make development. Next we have the burden of friendship, and this is basically just like the ending of a Miyabi's struggle with sort of Arumi, Arumi Kanzaki, and she sort of figures out that she does have friends basically in this little storyline. Next, we meet Fuyutsuki's younger sister, and this storyline is called Detective Miyako,
My daughter.
because yeah, thanks. Um Sort of at the end of maybe Rumi Liberty, she it's a Miss Fuyutsuki gets kidnapped by Mr. Teshigawa, because of his obsession. Um, and so this storyline it goes on for a bit up to like volume 19, and in the end, Teshigawa, you sort of see his background, and he ends up like um, he ends up holding up the school, and he like ties up the chairwoman. Um, he has like Fuyutsuki at like gunpoint in this sort of like detective kidnap mystery. But it ends well where his like brother turns up and like resolves things, and it's quite an interesting storyline. I think this is like a weaker storyline. I think it's because I think it's because I can't say this girl's name. Make Makoto. She's not a very strong character. She's like a bit of like a perfect sort of goody two shoes like Sherlock sort of character. But it's fine. And that's kind of when the first semester ends. Then it's lesson 157, and we come back. And this story arc I've called the new woman, and this is where we get the new principal. Um, or well, we get we get the new headmistress, Mizu Damon, and she I don't think I talk about this much later. Yeah, I don't think I do it at all really. Yeah, and so she comes in, and she tries to remove Onizuka from her school, because she doesn't like him. She thinks he's a destructive element. Um, and so what she does is in this storyline she like introduces like a point system where if you do good things as a teacher you get like paid more basically, and if you do bad things you get paid less. And at one point she like makes the rules so that she doesn't have to pay Onizuka at all, and she also throws Onizuka out of the school. Yeah, but obviously Onizuka comes through. Um, in the next storyline, we have Angel Tears. Obviously, the headmistress is still at large, but this storyline mainly focuses on an I, who's very good at some karate. And so in this storyline, I and like other angels employed by the headmistress, um they go around beating up all like the bullies in school, and just and then like themselves become the bullies. This storyline sort of ends in I like trying to expose Fuyusuke, um like well yeah, like a basic basically stealing Fuyusuke's underwear and bullying her, and then sort of like in front of the entire school, she I tries to expose Fuyusuke in front of everyone in sort of a attempt to destroy her. But just in time, Onizuka comes sort of comes through, and he BTFO's I, and he saves Miss Fuyusuke. Next we next we have just another day in life of Sejima. Um, then we have a Nobru's um gamer skills, which is just a side story with with a Nobru and Anko, because of Anko be, um because Nobru has won the hearts of Anko in tropical students labor. Um, he uh, um, he sort of goes on a date with Anko, and this and it's just like a short story of like Anko finally like accepting Nibiru and like all his flaws. It's quite it's quite a sweet story there. Next we have, I think, the second to last storyline. It's almost over. My throat is very dry now. This is called Maybe Secrets. Basically, this is where this is where Maybe ends up admitting her secrets, but also why like the whole class have a thing against teachers in the first place. And it's very different from the anime, because in the anime, Miyabi hates teachers because a old teacher had sexual relations with a different student who got pregnant and ended up killing herself. But in this instance, it's like a false Me Too accusation basically, because Miyabi gets jealous. Basically, maybe has a crush on, or had a crush on her old homeroom teacher. But when she finds out that he has a fiance, she gets super jealous and like feels betrayed, and so she frames him and says like he like sexually assaulted her basically when he didn't, and basically maybe and for this reason, like everything is basically Miyabi's fault, and this storyline is basically Miyabi admitting that she lied to everyone, and then in the end, Miyabi like becomes like cool basically. You know, she sort of like her like home life gets rectified by Onizuka in like in like a fulsome terrorist operation where like Onizuka Onizuka dresses up as a terrorist and pretends to like sort of pretends to threaten Miyabi's life. Um, but Miyabi's felt like it's very touching in this story because Miyabi's father turns up, who's usually quite distant to her, and he says that like I know I haven't been like around much, but I would like actually die for you, and so like this makes Miyabi very happy. Maybe is also when Miyabi's relationship with her friends gets rectified, and it's just like a great story for Miyabi, and Miyabi stops coping basically. Um, next, and then finally we have the final story arc called Onizuka Death and Rebirth, uh, where Onizuka he's suffered so many blows to the head over the course of the series. He's at risk of like a blood vessel in his head like um bursting, and like he like and he could be like paralyzed basically for the rest of his life. Um,
I had a feeling.
he gets
Wasn't there a similar arc in the anime as well, or maybe not? No.
man. I don't remember. There were in sort of both in the manga and the anime. He does get hospitalized a lot.
Hmm.
But sort of at the end of Miyabi's secret, a student who's secretly employed by headmistress Daemon, called a show. He has like a massive complex like a for the headmistress because he sort of sees her as his mother. So at the end of Miyabi's secret, he's trying to get Miyabi to like kill herself because if Miyabi kills herself, Onizuka would be distraught and he'll probably end up leaving the school. But a show ends up failing, and so he gets like he gets like massively shamed, and he gets massively shamed and called out by the headmistress by a daemon. And so in sort of a desperate attempt to like prove himself, he beats up all the other angels. He gets like a gang of like street rebels, and he goes and like attacks Onizuka in like his weakened state. However, even in his weakened state, Onizuka BTFOs everyone. But unfortunately, he suffers like a brain hemorrhage, and basically like almost dies. Um, Obviously, I'm I don't really want I don't really like want to spoil this story too much because it's literally the end. But this storyline ends very dramatically. And yeah, it's great, and you also get to see the headmistress's backstory too, and it's very interesting. Okay. Oh my. Okay, it's over now. I've
Okay.
okay.
Another one of the
Right.
fun slides. Uh,
Yeah. Okay. Right. Now I'm gonna end this presentation by just talking in a bit more detail about some of the story arcs. Um, because just because these story arcs are interesting. So the 80s classroom um is a very good microcosm of sort of the classic Onizuka storyline, where Onizuka goes for teacher training. The class isn't quite what he expects it's going to be. He meets a cute girl. The cute girl has like many problems. She has like family issues, and she's not very interested in school. However, in order to rectify her family issues, Onizuka literally breaks down the wall between her parents with a big sledgehammer. And this like whole storyline is really well done in the anime too. I think apart from the expensive food, um, the manga version of this story is basically the same as it is in the anime.
I mean, all.
And
Hmm.
sort of. yes. Go on.
Honestly, I didn't like this arc. I thought it was because I kind of feel like the anime at least gets enjoyable only after it becomes like a it becomes like a monster of the week Power Rangers sort of thing where Miyabi sends the next enemy,
Yeah,
the next mini
yeah,
boss
yeah.
as
Honestly, I agree. I agree. I just included the 80s classroom because it's just like because it's just a good way to explain the format basically. Right. You know, like basically the format is Onizuka comes into a situation. The situation is like very difficult. Um, Onizuka sort of comes up with like a crazy scheme to fix that problem. Um, the scheme he comes up with works miraculously, and then in the end, he is worshipped and respected by the entire class. And in this storyline, the after um sort of basically because Nana she entraps Onizuka basically or blackmails him, not entraps, but she blackmails him by seducing him and tricking him into like taking a scandalous photograph. Onizuka tracks down the culprits. He basically like drowns them basically. After he traps them with like his gang of like motorcyclists.
yeah, and the culprits are students
Um,
as well, of course.
yes. Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah,
And then in the end, the entire class worship him and respect his power because
yeah.
you should.
Yeah, also, I believe that in the first arc, he's actually in a high school, whereas afterwards it's all with middle schoolers. Yeah,
Yeah. These students are a bit older. Anyway, let's move on.
another
There's some
fan
more.
fiction. Yeah, another
Okay,
reason to read Onizuka, I guess.
okay. The next interesting story arc is a GTA versus the NSA. So right before this story starts, Onizuka is sort is I think for like you know sort of because Onizuka is is just a fun loving he dresses up as a elephant um but sort of because of that. Well, okay, I think I need to explain the story. I think I need to explain the end of the arc before that, and I'll just get it up. Hang on. Where is it? GTA vs the NSA. Oh God, where is it? Oh well, oh well. I don't know. Well, who cares? So for various reasons, the leader of the mother and child in school victims support group turns up to investigate Onizuka. But due to some bad luck, Onizuka accidentally sprays her in the face with his elephant trunk. Um, as you can see, um, as punishment, the vice principal orders Onizuka to score the highest in the country on the NSA or the National Scholastic Achievement Test. Otherwise, he will have grounds to fire him. Um, so obviously because she's so cute, Azusa Fusky invites Onizuka to her apartment to revise. And it's like really funny because all the stuff that happens in her apartment as you can see in the image in like the in the side here, she like feeds him like this whole like tuna head, and it's like huge and absolutely monstrous, and she like invents stuff like sensory like deprivation equipment and things to like channel his like beta waves or something. Um, it's like it's like pretty hopeless. And she also like feeds him like eyeball jelly. Like she has like a bunch of like tuna eyeballs, and she puts it in like a jelly. It's like pretty horrific. um, anyways, sort of what while this is happening, um, a um, a girl called Uto Hidemi offers Onizuka a way out of his predicament. Um, only if he licks her foot and barks for her. Onizuka doesn't agree to this, and instead he opts to ace the test instead. However, just before he does the test, Hidemi gets kidnapped by some thugs um, to try and extort some money from her father because her father was like a rich politician. So Onizuka ends up chasing after her. He saves her from her kidnapping. Onizuka gets shot like 3 times. Um, and so uh, like as he's bleeding out, right? He manages to like score like he manages to get like a perfect score on the test, but he is hospitalized. But obviously he does recover from it because he's Onizuka,
Yeah,
man of will and power,
yeah, yeah,
and also he's great.
yeah. But basically, after he gets shot, he just goes to the school to do the exam like it's nothing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Next up, is a great storyline, and this is where my Arumi I don't know appreciation isn't revealed because I'm gonna be talking about some Kenzaki for a while basically from now on. So Miyabi is still coping and seething about Onizuka passing the NSA. So she calls up Arumi Kanzaki, who's as I explained a child prodigy. She has like an IQ of like 200. Um, Arumi begins as Onizuka's adversary, seducing him and framing him as a sex pervert in front of the police. Arumi then goes on to terrorize the teachers. She makes Azusa and Tadashi feel dumb, and she also sets Hiroshi's hair on fire. Tadashi is the English teacher. Azusa is a Fuyutsuki, and Hiroshi is the science teacher, who's also called the Chihuahua. Um, just to not so cause any confusion because there are like a lot of characters, and it's difficult to keep track. Um, then when Onizuka confronts Arumi, he tests him by assaulting a gang member. The two are chased back to school where Arumi begins to warm to Onizuka. Then Onizuka butt bumps her off the roof, as you can see. Uh, um, Onizuka panics and takes Kanzaki's unconscious body to the forest to bury her. But obviously, she wakes up right as he's performing the kiss of life on her. Onizuka, feeling guilty, he starts obeying like every order she gives him, like like a genie. And then we have like a short side thing with Kanzaki and Tomoko where they have like a master slave relationship, and we also see that in the anime too. Um, Next up, Onizuka gets his friends to pose as a bike gang, and then takes Arumi from school. He performs a risky stunt on an unfinished highway. This terrifies Kanzaki, but breaks her. but breaks her melancholy. Um, and finally, Kanzaki smiles and gains respect for Onizuka. This is like a great sort of heartwarming story. Again, there's like a lot of other interesting and funny stuff that happens. Um, my mouse is running out of battery. Yes. Yeah. It's just a good story. Okay. Next up, there's some more fan service for you
Yeah,
guys.
another reason to watch Onizuka.
Yeah. Another two reasons.
Another two
Okay.
reasons. Yeah. Good.
Next is next is tropical student labour, and I think yeah, we still have a ways to go. So we're strapping guys because tropical student labour is kind of a complex storyline. Okay, so obviously this is a a while after the Ruby story. So after raising 8 million yen, Onizuka and the class 3-4 are able to go to Okinawa. Obviously Miyabi doesn't attend because in money troubles, she's the one who orchestrates this whole situation and causes like a lot of trouble for everyone. And so obviously she doesn't really attend, sort of after sort of out of shame, but also out of like her hatred for Onizuka. Like she won't even go to Okinawa because like that's how much she hates Onizuka basically. Um, much shape Free has there's a slight tattoos, the bullying of a Nibiru, and being mistaken for a Chinese illegal. Um, this is different in the manga because in the anime they just sort of like turn up, but in the manga because Onizuka takes the wrong boat when he goes tuna fishing, he ends up having to hide in the toilets of this cruise ship he accidentally finds himself in, and so he sort of has to like swim to Okinawa on his own, but he then gets caught by the Chinese by the Japanese border guards, and they think he's like a Chinese immigrant basically. It's a pretty funny. It's just like a small detail, but I don't know. Anyway, so Onizuka assigns rooms last minute. He mixes the boys with he mixes the boys and girls together. Everyone complains. Nibiru is further bullied by Anko and her friends. They then make him sleep out on the balcony. Onizuka helps Nibiru prank the girls, then abandons. The next day, Nibiru is seen with bruises on his face. Kanzaki, as revenge for putting her with Gundam nerds, puts a snake in Onizuka's swimming trunks. Um, um, he's obviously taken to the nurse's office, but while he's getting treated for the snake bite, Onizuka overhears Ishito talking about old buried treasure, and if you just look to the right of this slides, this is like the best panel of all time. Just his face Onizuka makes when he realizes that he can take advantage of the class to dig for treasure. It's so good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, uh, next, Onizuka loads the entire class onto a boat, saying they're going digging for sea turtle eggs. The class quickly finds out about Onizuka's scheme. Due to his shame, Kanzaki is then able to assert dominance, and both in the anime and the manga, like she like turns him into like her dog, and she like literally like rides him around like as he like walks on like all fours. It's pretty brutal actually. Um, uh, but while this is happening, Anko, Naoko, and Mayuku end up getting lost as they attempt to abandon Nibiru in the jungle. Anko is swept into a cave, causing Nibiru to heroically jump in after her. Okay, and then we have part 3. Hearing of the disappearances, Onizuka sort of dashes all fours into the jungle, taking Kanzaki and and Naoka with him. Though I'm not sure really which student he actually does take him, because it's kind of vague in the manga. Um, Nubari manages to save Anko. Anko immediately develops a crush on Nubaru. I that's a mistake in my presentation. I no yeah. So after some time, Nubaru is able to guide Anko out of the underground cave before it is flooded. Anko and Nibiru are interrupted in the middle of a moment by Aquino. After the class get back to the hotel, Onizuka finds out that Anko likes Nibiru. Then Onizuka calls for a middle of the night activity where he fabricates an opportunity for Anko to express her feelings. Um, so so yeah, basically, yeah. I don't know. I don't I don't think there's really any more to explain here. Yeah. So yeah. So basically, like part one is like generic holiday anime. Is like a generic beach episode, but then it sort of turns into a love story sort of between Anko and Nibiru, which is pretty cute. Next up, we have Family Matters, and this is where I began to run out of time because this presentation took a long time to make. Okay, but there's there's something very basic I want to say here anyway. So it doesn't really matter. In Family Matters, um, it's Mayu, the granddaughter of the chairwoman, Sakurai. He turns up after he's called in by the arch villain, the arch villain. Um, oh my god. Um,
Miyabi? What?
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yes, by Miyabi. Also there's like a funny moment where Onizuka realizes that Miyabi has dyed her hair blue, the same color as Rei Ayanami. And so and so basically, yeah, Onizuka like hugs hugs her, and it's just like a very funny moment. But anyway, because basically because because Mayu um is like essentially a like young Onizuka. He's able to like really annoy Onizuka, and he whips him into a frenzy. This ends in Onizuka crushing him with a like row of lockers. He like he rips out of the ground. How but however, the chairwoman, Mrs. Sakurai, catches him doing this, and this leads to the most shocking part of the entire manga,
Oh,
where Onizuka is slapped in the face by the chairwoman. Um,
on which
but
slide are we? Sorry.
this is slide 28. It's just like a bunch of images, and underneath it, it's called Family Matters. Go back.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stream is has like some lag, but I assume you're in now. So if you look at the panel, like the center top panel of this slide, um this basically encapsulates I think what Onizuka is fighting against in the entire manga, um where basically basically Mayu hides a girl called Agia in the trunk of this stolen car. And then he gives this car to Onizuka as like a way to apologize to him. So Onizuka is driving his car around with I believe it's a Kuno or a Kunio. Um, but then the police start chasing him, and Onizuka sort of starts speeding. But obviously, because of how this car functions, if you drive too fast, it will sort of suffocate the like somebody who's sort of like hidden in the trunk. So in this moment, like Onizuka gets like shamed into like running away from his responsibilities. Um, but obviously, Onizuka being great. Um, as soon as he hears this criticism, he instantly puts his foot on the brake pedal, and he deals with the authorities in sort of a adult way. And for this, you know um you know as this is happening, um Mayu, he sees this, and he gains like a lot of respect for Onizuka, because he takes responsibility for this car and for these students like a adult. So yeah, it's just like a great little story. Again, and about the butterfly you may have saw. um that's like that's a butterfly belongs to the girl, belongs to that belongs to the girl, and Mayu stuffed into the body of the car. Anyway, next we have, and I think this is the last storyline I'm going to cover, but this is a big four-parter, because it follows both Miyabi and Arumi, and like their like troubles they have. So when Miyabi is still coping, she's suffering from self-imposed alienation due to her hatred of Onizuka. Combined with a bad home life, she decides to run away. Onizuka catches Miyabi shoplifting. uh, then Tomoko lets her stay at her place, and there's just like a really cute panel where sort of Miyabi like actually agrees to stay at her place. Anyway, despite the antics of Onizuka and Tomoko, Miyazi Miyabi is still not satisfied. But just as she is about to leave, Tomoko stops her at the door and reminds her of their friendship. Miyabi sort of begins to not cope. Um, open brackets, and perform introspection, close brackets. Uh, Next, so anyway, what is happening? I think, yeah. So there's this panel here where Arumi is like dressed as like a no not so Arumi, where it's Tomoko. She like dresses up as like a cat cutely, for some reason, and she's like super happy that that Miyabi has agreed to stay with her. And it's just like a great moment between his characters, because Tomoko is like best girl, you know and she's like really happy that her best friend like wants to stay with her. Anyway, well, sort of well, sort of after, but like sort of while this is happening, Kanzaki is bored with her home life, and she feels a parent-sized hole in her heart, because her mother is very distant. Then Onizuka visits her home to inspect her mother. He interrupts Miss Kanzaki's day trading business. I think he trips over a cable, and she misses out on a sale. Next, Onizuka and Kanzaki leave, and then Kanzaki makes a request to run away with him. Onizuka sort of agrees with this, but only in part. The two go on a long day trip across the country. Onizuka gets annoyed at Kanzaki's excessive requests. For example, um, Summerland is Summerland is like very close by, apparently, but Rumi insists on going to a Miyazaki instead. Like literally like just because the water is different in their swimming pools. um, uh, then at the end of the day, Kanzaki attempts to proposition Onizuka, but he doesn't give in. And sort of from this point onwards, Kanzaki has like a massive crush on Onizuka, and this is sort of expressed in many different ways in like how she behaves around him in like the stories afterwards. Oh my god, my mouse has stopped working again. Okay, right. And now for part three. We're over halfway now. So to help with the loneliness, Onizuka buys Kanzaki a phone with a camera so they can both see each other when they call. Kanzaki and Miyabi meet up unexpectedly at the theme park with a Tomoko. Miyabi and her melodrama is called out by Kanzaki. This only makes the Stephen cope more. Then Arumi's past as a inverter child is revealed, or in vitro. Kanzaki reveals this heavily guarded secret to the whole school. Kanzaki pulls a fire alarm because she like freaks out over this, and then spray paints an internet address on the windows of a website which is dedicated to the innermost life of Miyabi, because basically Arumi has hidden cameras all around her house.
Yeah, so it's Miyabi
Um,
who reveals Rumi's secret, right?
yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and just to the right here, there's this great panel where Arumi is sort of like really happy because Onizuka has like shown her like has like spent time with her, and like given her attention. But at this is sort of a roommate like sort of being like overjoyed, but then she sort of like turns up in school. She sort of sees what Amiyabi has done to her, and yeah, she just like snaps basically. Um, at the same time as this, Teshigawa, the maths teacher, convinces the principal to send out a fax to every parent denouncing and defaming Onizuka. He then also kidnaps Azusa in a chaos caused by Kanzaki after Kanzaki pulls the fire alarm and the sprinkler systems go off everywhere basically. Kanzaki and Arumi run away from school. Onizuka follows Kanzaki, and Koji follows Miyabi to stop, stop them from ending it all. Because Koji likes Miyabi. Miyabi passes out from a drugs overdose and is bicycled to the hospital by Koji. Kanzaki is saved just in time by Onizuka after he punches the principal in the face as he tries to stop him. It's very complicated, but basically the principal, even like before this point, gets whipped up into a frenzy by Teshigawa and also by himself, and he actually ends up stabbing Onizuka. But even though Onizuka is stabbed, he still goes and saves saves a Kanzaki. And there's a very tense moment in the manga between Onizuka and the principal. Um, Next, I just have three panels because I couldn't be bothered to write up a part three, and it's sorry a part five, and it's much easier just to show you and explain how the storyline ends basically. So it turns out that the secret images that Arumi has on Miyabi is sort of a dud, and instead Arumi just has a childhood photograph hidden in the website, um, and it's like it's just this cute childhood photograph of Arumi and Miyabi and Tomoko sharing like a meal at camp, um, which which shows that basically Arumi still believes in a friendship with Miyabi, even even after she attempts to commit suicide, and it's it's very heartwarming. Um, Obviously, Onizuka saves Arumi. The principal takes some responsibility for the fax message, and he admits to all the angry parents that he was the one who sent the message, and that he did it because he hated Onizuka. And so because of this, the headmaster is sent to a different school, and he gets replaced in the second semester by the new headmistress. And then this story ends in Arumi hugging her mum after, because sort of again, just to further complicate things. During this time, Arumi's mother, Mrs. Kanzaki, she sort of gets scammed, and her like entire business falls apart outside of the whole Onizuka business. And so like she's like really depressed, and so it sort of ends in Arumi comforting her mother, and in the end, like her mother like starts noticing her, and yeah, it's sort of a good ending, but it's not the end for Miyabi, and Miyabi has to have like her issues solved much later. All right, thanks for watching, dudes.
Okay, so that was the end.
Oh,
Oof.
yeah. Oh man, that took way longer than I thought it would. But hopefully, you everyone has a good idea of what like the manga is like and why they should watch it. Um, yeah, I talked about some interesting storylines. I talked about like why Onizuka's cool and stuff. And yeah, and hopefully you all enjoyed the fan service I added to the presentation too. And hopefully this stream won't be age restricted, but I don't know, who cares.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, let's end it there.